Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I decided to finish spading the F-5E FCU, which is the squadron vehicle in the Japanese tech tree for good old Thailand. This was one of the first Thai vehicles that was added to the Japanese tech tree, and to be quite honest, it's really enjoyable. The F5 platform in general in War Thunder is fantastic. It's incredibly quick, it's incredibly maneuverable, and the other factor that is usually not thought about when it comes to the F5, it has a really small heat signature, so therefore you can actually, it's harder to lock on IR missiles to it compared to other platforms, and also that means that your countermeasures are just more useful. And the F5E also has some large caliber countermeasures, so you can shrug off IR missiles way easier compared to other vehicles. This vehicle also has access to a really nice armament, which makes it just a lot nicer too. So if you're looking for an F5 to play and you want kind of the best one, I think the F-5E FCU is in the best place compared to everything else. Another factor that has also helped out the F-5E FCU is the premium Hornet existing. I know this sounds really weird, but I have played the F-5E in two separate eras. I played it before the Hornets were in the game and after the Hornets were in the game. And when the Hornets weren't in the game, you got a lot of 12-0, a lot of 12-3 matches with stuff like the F4S, because that was the premium that a lot of people were using to grind. Nowadays, most people are using the Hornet instead, so now you actually are able to play around more of your BR. And also at the same time, even in those full up tiers, in those 12-3 or 12-0 up tiers, you are actually able to do a lot anyway, because this is a Dogfighter IR machine, and therefore if you know how to defend against semi-active radar homing missiles, you can do really well. Basically, against semi-active radar homing missiles, what you want to try and do is try and run them into the ground. So you stay low to the ground, at least, 50 to 100 meters above it. 50 meters is basically where the missiles will struggle to track you and run themselves into the ground. If you sit between the 50 and 100 and then you see yourself getting locked, then you dip, the missile will just run into the ground, or you can try and get away from it in a different way, but usually that's the best way. So since this is an IR vehicle, you want to stay as close to the ground as possible. You do not want to go upwards and try and fight in those areas, because you will just get popped by semi-actives, because there are a lot of vehicles with very powerful radars at this BR. Now this vehicle has the AN ALR 46V3. This is a pretty good RWR in my opinion. I didn't have any issues against anything I really fought in the ways of not knowing what I was going up against. It was pretty good at telling me what was going around. And then also there is of course the little radar in this thing, which to be honest wasn't very useful, because you want to be as close into the action as possible, and in air realistic you obviously see everybody that's around everywhere. So for me, the RWR was much more important in detecting enemies, detecting threats, and seeing where stuff was coming from. Now the stock grind for this thing wasn't entirely the best, since it is a platform that does kind of rely on its missiles to start an engagement. This vehicle does have very good cannons. If you've never used the 20mm M39A3s, highly recommend it. They have tons of ammunition, which is great. Very high velocity as well. It reminds me of stuff like the Ariete in the kind of Italian tech tree, where as long as you get kind of like the lead on the guns, which is very short by the way because of how high velocity they are, these guns hit like a truck. And since you have a ton of ammunition, 560 rounds, which between two guns is fantastic. This makes a great platform to be able to annihilate stuff in dogfights and also just in turn fighting. So the vehicle has great guns. It also, once you unlock them, has the Python 3s. Now, you start off with the AIM-9 P4s. The AIM-9 P4s are, if I'm going to describe them, they are all-aspect missiles, right? But they're kind of an AIM-9P, which feels like it has an AIM-9L Seeker head on it. This might actually be the case, but that's at least what it feels like when it comes to the game. So it's a bit trolley. You can lock onto targets, and you can fire the missiles way out of the range of the actual motor of the missile, so therefore they're not really that useful unless you treat it like an AIM-9J. which is basically what the AIM-9P is at its base. So the seeker head is a bit confusing. Once you get around that, you'll be fine. And then when you unlock the the Python 3s, you can bring 4 missiles on this thing, which is great, because most F5s you only get 2 missiles, and bringing 4 means you just have extra capabilities. This vehicle also gets Mavericks, so you can use it in ground forces, which is really good, especially since a lot of Japanese vehicles really struggle when it comes to kind of ground munitions or CAS munitions, and you get a bunch of bombs as well if you really want to use it. But the real area where this thing shines is aerialistic, right? That's the area where it kind of dominates. It does have the EEGS, since you can lock on with the radar. This actually can be useful if you have good ping. If you don't have good ping like me, it's not really useful. It just means you miss a lot of your shots. So you are mainly missile and also gun bound, and I wouldn't bother too much with the radar, as I said, because you will just miss shots. So the general playstyle of this thing, how did I play it and how was I successful in it? Well, you stay low to the ground, which is obvious since you're not a semi-active radar missile firing machine. And what you do is you have the initial engagement, which happens in the middle of the map. Then you can target people who are either going for bases or target people who are going for strategic areas. You can go in front of them and basically go for a head-on, fire the guns a little bit, just a bit far out, and then as they're about maybe a kilometer away, even less away, you can fire a Python 3 at them. And this Python 3 will pretty much always hit as long as they're not pre-flaring. Now, the Python 3s are really, really powerful missiles, okay? They have crazy overload, they have very, very high sensitivity, and also they will track a target basically off the rail. So this makes it a fantastic missile to be able to do head-ons with, but also at the same time, it doesn't have an IRCCM. So that means that if the enemy is able to flare, the missile will just miss. It will just fly off somewhere just like an R60 does, or just like other missiles. So you need to catch the enemy in an area where they're not able to actually defend against it. And the way you do this is by getting as close as possible to them, usually, as I said, around a kilometer, and then firing the missile. So you have to really time it really well in the head-on to be able to destroy them. And that can be hard to do, but if you can get it right, the Python 3 will guarantee you 2 kills in every match. And one of the things I have actually been doing is I've been firing my guns and then firing my missile after. The reason for this is because the player is usually focusing on the gunfire and where it's actually leading instead of where the missile is behind it. And if they don't have incredibly quick reactions, they just get nuked. And then you use the AIM-9P4s to try and slow down enemies, or to try and, get enemies to maneuver, so then you can hit them with the guns. Because this vehicle, even though it's tiny, the engines give you enough power to be able to pretty much catch anything that's around. So if you are slowing them down, you can do a great job at catching them. And yeah, this uses the J85 GE21A engines, which are very good for the platform. If you haven't played an F5 before, I highly recommend them. They're super fun to play, and this one is no different. It means that if you're in a position where you get jumped on, you can defensively fly, you can push the person, you can make them overshoot, you can hit them with the guns, you can hit them with the missiles. If you want to go offensive, if you want to do head-ons, if you want to do like side attacks, if you want to chase enemies, you can do everything in the F5 because you have the speed, you have the maneuverability, you have the missiles. There's a lot of vehicles in this game where it feels like with them, you have to play them in a specific way in order to make them work. And that's because they are tailored to a specific thing. A vehicle we're actually going to talk about later on today is one of those vehicles. But when it comes to the F5, you don't have to do that. You can play it in whatever way you want, and you will be successful, as long as you don't climb to a ridiculous altitude and try and fight people one-on-one when they have radar locking missiles. You can't do that bit, But at 11.3, I would say most people who are playing, as long as they're not playing Phantoms, and maybe the occasional MiG-23, if they understand how the radar works, then you're not going to run into too much of that. So you get to play the battlefield the way that people play, but also throw in your own little 2 cents here and there. It's just fantastic. It's just a really survivable vehicle. It's one which everybody can enjoy in its own way. And just to give you an idea of how much I enjoyed this thing, I played 37 battles in this to spade it, which this is like a very high modification vehicle. It was like 340k, 360k, or maybe even like 300k. Like it wasn't a small amount of RP. Usually it takes like a bit longer. Just to give you an idea, right? So the F-5E FCU took 37 battles to spade. If we have a look at another vehicle that I've recently played, the Aegis 37, it took 46 battles. So 10 whole battles more to spade basically the same amount of modification cost. So 37 battles, 62% win rate, 113 air kills, 12 deaths. So I'm only dying a third of the time. And remember, this is from stock to spaded, and also we're averaging 2.5 kills a match. That's nuts. That's just insane and shows you how well this thing fits the meta. If you haven't played it, make sure to play it. It's a beautiful highlight reel vehicle and also just incredibly fun. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.